Welcome to the Doggy Dojo. I'm your host, Susan Light, a Los Angeles-based dog trainer and behavior consultant on a quest to become worthy of the title Sensei of the Doggy Dojo. Today we're talking about how to choose a dog that fits into your lifestyle. I understand this could be a controversial topic. I don't want you to think that I consider dogs some kind of product that you buy. It's actually quite the opposite. A dog is a member of your family for, hopefully, 10 to 15 years. I and other trainers spend a lot of time and energy trying to keep dogs in their families that aren't bad dogs, they're just a bad match. So this episode is about begging you to consider the commitment you're making when you add a dog to your family, and to not get swept away in the emotion of a cute puppy's face, the hype of a dog in a film you love, or the nostalgia of a dog you had in your childhood. We're going to talk about practical things to consider when you're looking to bring a dog into your forever home to make it an easier transition for everyone, and hopefully a match made in heaven. My disclaimer is that, of course, every dog is an individual, so there will be exceptions to everything we talk about. You know your lifestyle and your family best, so be honest with what you're looking for when you're adding a pet. My guest today is a positive trainer who is a member of the Association of Pet Dog Trainers, the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, and the West LA Obedience Club. She is a certified Canine Good Citizen Evaluator, a therapy dog evaluator, and trains service dogs. She volunteers for a number of rescue groups, and her professional goal is to keep dogs out of shelters. She's also my mentor when I went through my first certification program, so she's had a big influence on me in my career. Please welcome Robin Roy. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'm excited. So I think this is an interesting topic that sometimes people don't think about, which is choosing your dog.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Sometimes they choose you.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
Yes,
might have happened to me a time or two, but let's talk about why it's important to choose a good fit. Because yes, these dogs chose me, but I had like a foster period where I was like, you know what, they're actually really good fits.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. They jingle. Jingle's good.
I had a foster period with both of these dogs where, I got a chance to see that they're actually really good fits for our lifestyles and all the dogs coming in and out. So, I definitely could have made the choice to be like, we're just going to foster and find them a better home. But yeah, why is it important to choose a dog that's a good fit? Like, I don't really think every dog can be successful in every home in modern life.
No, I mean, it would be great, but also, wouldn't it be nice if it wasn't a struggle to have everything together? It's like finding a roommate, right? Like you can't always connect, at least long term, and you're talking years with this dog. So I think it's an important decision. And yeah, sometimes they do choose you and you just sort of manage it. But there's so many different kinds of dogs, and I love them all, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I mean, yeah, every kind. Some dogs that people are like, I don't know, his face is squishy. I love them all. And I want them all. Behavior issues can happen simply because it's the wrong fit, right? Too much energy for me, which doesn't take a lot. They end up homing because they've got so much energy and you're never home. That's not the right fit, right? I usually ask my clients, like, what do you want to do with your dog? Everybody wants a dog, they want it for the kids, or they want, just to have some companionship. But what do you want to do? Do you go on hikes? Are you a sports person? You really competitive? You want to run agility courses with tunnels and jumps? Or do you just want a couch potato?
Which I think is fair to admit to yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I would love to say that, when I'm 80, I would still love to run an agility course, but I don't see it happening. My last dog that I actually thought about breeds and all of that is a giant schnauzer. And, I knew now is the time. 10 years from now, I'm not going to have the strength for a 90-pound strong dog. Maybe. I mean, I'd like to think I can, but, he's well behaved and all of that. And we're trainers and, they can learn to walk nicely and not lunge at things once in a while or whatever. But still, realistically, you have to look at who you are and where you are, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's a good shift that we're having in our industry in general. Like one of the topics this season was management. And, I talk a lot about enrichment. I think it's great that we're sort of recognizing we need to meet these dogs' needs to make them be successful. But it's also important to realize that if you don't have the energy or the resources to meet this particular dog's needs, it's going to be a bad situation for you both. Right.
Yeah.
I think this attitude of like, well, we can just make the dog fit. We can just train them, teach them, whatever, and get this square peg into this round hole. I'd like to think that shift is changing a little bit.
Yeah.
That's shifting.
I mean, the majority of dog training is about the humans anyway, right?
Yeah.
But if, you have an Australian Shepherd who's really brilliant and you're not so bright, they're going to get ahead of you really fast. I always say, don't get a smart dog because really everybody thinks that's what they want, but then you've got to meet those needs. And if you don't, it's really not fair. I've clocked a lot of hours with rescues and shelter dogs, and I see, there are some common things that are going on there, dogs that just were too clever, or just, were very perky. And then, you go visit a dog in a shelter or a rescue, which if it's not a foster situation, if they have a facility, that dog is very different there than he's going to be at your house. You think you see a dog who's, really calm, and he might just be shut down. And then he gets to your house. And I've seen some bouncy dogs in a rescue situation, and they go home and they're like, oh, finally I can relax. So you can't always judge a book by its cage,
Yeah. Which is why I think fostering is so great because, again, I don't want people to treat it like shopping for a car or something where you like try it, drive it for a while, send it back. But this is a long commitment, 15 years, hopefully, commitment. So it is good to be thoughtful and realize, the behavior is going to change a little bit. So if you get a chance to foster, it's a really great chance to see if you're both a good fit.
Yeah. It shouldn't be a real spontaneous decision, I think. I think you need to really think about it first. So otherwise the dog could be rehomed. And obviously there is no shame in rehoming if it was the wrong fit. And that's something I try to get people to understand. It's hard because you fall in love.
It's difficult.
But if they're in the moment kind of dogs, most of the time they're like, okay, I live here now and they'll be okay. But, a lot of the dogs in the shelters and rescues are from 8 to 18 months old. Right. So they got to where they were just getting past that puppyhood and they're going to be really so much nicer now and calmer, and they give up. Like the humans just can't do it anymore, which is to say, I don't think a lot of people really should be getting puppies. We think we're starting with a clean slate. We think that we can create the dog we want. There's only so much of that you can do, genetics and breed and all of that. But I think a lot of people really probably shouldn't be raising puppies. You're creating a citizen, and it's a big responsibility. At least it should be a big responsibility, not just because they're cute and it's hard to resist them. Let me just say too, there are exceptions to everything I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
There are plenty of lazy Australian Shepherds. I have one who stays with me a lot, and I always say he's the gentleman. He just hangs out. He's a couch potato. Unless you want to get him going, then he's fine too. Like there are exceptions to every breed. All breeds are great, but that doesn't mean you have to bring them home. You could admire them and know, nope, I'm not really going to handle a border collie really well.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of energy, I think, physical and mental energy to handle it, there were some dogs, Australian cattle dogs, Australian Shepherds, Border Collies, Weimaraners, Boxers, Malinois, Vizslas. They're all very energetic dogs. I don't have any of those in my house.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing is like, if you get one of these dogs, and let's talk about age a little bit, because you were saying not everybody should have a puppy, which 1,000%. I remember we always adopted adult dogs from the shelter, and all of us kids were begging for a puppy. We wanted a puppy. And I didn't understand what raising a puppy was like until I became a professional dog trainer. And now, I'm like board and training puppies and helping my clients with puppies. And I'm like, wow, I understand why my parents did not want to get a puppy. And it is true. Like, honestly, let's just like broadly talk about the needs of a dog at a certain age. So if you quote unquote purchase a dog from a breeder or rescue a puppy from a shelter, maybe they had puppies in the shelter, you can actually adopt puppies from shelters. Generally you're going to get them at 8 weeks of age.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk about what it takes to have an 8-week-old puppy in your house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
You can't just go to work. You can't just
no, and you
leave for
can't go
10
on
hours.
vacation. Could you plan your
Yeah.
vacation better? Like you're planning the
Well,
puppy
this is
kind of.
how they end up at my house for a month. And it's a lot of work. So let's talk about this. You bring in this 8-week-old puppy home, and I think almost no one is prepared for the fact that you have to completely rearrange your life for a while.
Yeah. I mean, some puppies are just angels. They just are, and everything works out. My last one is shout out to Positive Beginnings LA, PAWS. They rescue moms and puppies or before they have puppies from the shelters. And that's where my littlest one came from. And he slept through the night, the first night I had him in a crate. That's not
Amazing.
normal. That's
No,
not a
it's really not.
trainer. That's just who he is. But most of them
Yeah.
are going to keep you up at night. Most of them are going to get up
Especially
at
the
3
little
o'clock.
ones with the tiny bladders.
Everybody says that too, but I think, their bladder's the right size for their body. Shouldn't it be okay? Just like it is for the big ones? I don't know. Crate training really helps, but sometimes they're not really ready for that. We haven't introduced the crate properly. So then they get up at 3 a.m. and at 6 a.m. Sometimes, you certainly need someone to talk you off the ledge. I do a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you need to let the puppy go to bed later, pick up their water dish before they go to bed. So you don't need to get up at 3 a.m. But then we get confused because
We don't have to go down the puppy training path.
Yeah.
That's a different episode. But these puppies need to go out potty at least every couple hours.
Yeah.
All day. Possibly, like you're saying, not going to sleep through the night for a little while.
Yeah. And they're bitey, and they want to eat your socks, and
everything.
Your children have to learn to pick up their Legos. There's a lot that goes on, and then they get to be where they're better at home, and you think, oh, see, that was a really good idea, and then they go through an adolescent phase where they freak out about everything, or, have fear periods, and what did you get yourself into? So
and I think that surprises everyone. I know that's something I didn't know about dogs. It should make sense that they go through an adolescence.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that about dogs. It's like you think you make it through the puppyhood, you're golden. Adolescence is tough.
Yeah, they just refuse to listen, all of a sudden. Or my giant schnauzer at 18 months wouldn't get in the car. He didn't have any problem with the car before, but he had a fear period at 18 months. He's a large breed, and he just had it later than some dogs do. It's random sort of when they get their fear period. So I waited about 10 days later. He was fine. It just went away. But you have to be ready for all that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so cute. I can understand why people get them, when they're so cute and sweet, but it really isn't for everyone. And I do believe trainers should get puppies because somebody has to raise them properly. Somebody has to socialize them well. But growing up with a puppy with kids, I get that that's really nice, but there are plenty of dogs at the shelters and rescues that just need somebody. They're 8 months old. That's still a puppy, or a year old. They're still young, and they've already gone through some house training, maybe,
Yeah.
I think that's where everybody really should start. You go online and you look for, dogs that might suit you that are already out there, that instead of having to go to a breeder and get a specific dog. If you really, really, really always wanted a golden retriever, then you do your research and you find, the golden retriever type that's right for you. Some of them are nutty. Some of them are lazy. I had a 6-month-old in my class who would lie on his back every time we did a down. Like he just hung out. He was a couch potato golden. That's not always normal,
No.
Some of them are really active. I have another one in class now who I call a kite because he's like flying on the end of the leash all the time. And his mom isn't
big
young.
Dogs. They're big
dogs.
Dogs.
Yes. And they make the cutest puppies ever. I get it. But maybe there's fetch and retrievers in Orange County in California. They have Goldens and Labs, and they just rescue all these dogs who just needed another chance. Sometimes an owner dies and the dog needs a home, and they're perfect otherwise,
Yeah. And that's the thing is, so now we're talking about the stage of like adulthood, and this always happens. We get those panic calls from the people who have puppies, and they're like, my other dog wasn't like this. It's like, you just forgot.
You forgot.
Or you didn't get that dog as a puppy because, once they hit 4 or whatever and they really mellow out and they're used to your routine, you just have your perfect dog for hopefully 10, 12 years, but let's talk about the end of life. We don't have to talk about it very specifically because I know you just lost one of your babies, But like a senior also has specific things to keep in mind.
Yeah, yeah. And I always think seniors for seniors, right? When the puppies have those teeth and they scratch up, finer skin. When you get older, your skin's a little thinner. And if you just got a dog who was like 8, wouldn't that be nice?
If you'd like to find Robin, she's on Instagram at Robin Roy Dog Training, or you can check out her website, robinroy.com. We'll be right back.
Seniors will cost us more money for sure. I have pet insurance on all my dogs, and my last senior who went through cancer, most of it was covered by insurance. It was awesome, but you have to be home with them a lot more sometimes. Sometimes there are accidents in the house that they didn't used to have, and
adjusting like ramps,
yes,
non-slip things on your floors.
Yes.
So that's something to keep in mind is, you have to make a lot of adjustments for puppies for sure, but sometimes on the other end of the life, you're also making adjustments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, my senior now he's going to be 15 soon. He goes with me on errands when it's not hot out so he can hang out in the car because he's not going on walks. He has arthritis these days. So I adjust to, him going to lunch more often with me and getting to be out and about. He does nose work class because it's mentally stimulating, but not physically, a lot for him. It keeps his brain working. It's really great. He's really good at it. It just shows you like their noses win.
I love it.
His hearing is gone. His eyesight's not so great, but his nose is working.
And it probably has gotten worse, but it's like still amazing because of where it started, right? Like it probably degenerated a little bit through age, but
I don't know. Sometimes he surprises me.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about age. We talked a little bit about breed characteristics. You mentioned some breeds that, have some when we say breed characteristics, you should really look these up for any kind of dog that you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And we said there's individual things, but like you just have to know what some of these dogs are like. Some dogs don't generally do well with strangers.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a breed characteristic. And if you're loving having people or you want a dog that you can take everywhere with you, you might want to consider that. Some dogs chew, some dogs bark more than other dogs, right?
Yep.
And yes, there's training, but they're bred to do certain jobs and you cannot train out every doggy thing.
No. And then why would you get that breed then? Why are you trying to change them? You can't change your husband. You're really not going to change a greyhound from wanting to run, but on that end, greyhounds can be a really very great apartment dog, for instance, because they have less energy than a lot of dogs. You think, oh my gosh, they're on, racetracks and back in the day. No, they do when they need to, but they can be very chill. Newfoundlands are very chill. Bassets, Cavaliers.
Great Danes.
Yeah, Great Danes. When I lived in New York City and we see Great Danes all over the place, you think, really, in an apartment? Well, you just don't have a coffee table. There's no room for a coffee table if you have a Great Dane.
They just need their own couch.
Yep, that's all.
Fine.
Yep.
But that's something important to know. And then on the side of like exercise needs and mental needs, when you said, it makes a good apartment dog, I would like to point out that having a yard does not exercise your high energy dog.
Yep. Everybody thinks that's a solution. Oh, I shouldn't get that.
Oh, I have a yard.
Right?
It's totally fine. Or I can't have a dog because I don't have a yard. Having a yard can make it easier for you for sure, but you can't just take a border collie or a husky and be like, go in the yard. Trust me.
Yeah, no. My mom used to say that about her dog. She goes outside all the time. She's, sniffing the air and chasing a squirrel once an hour. That's not exercise, really. And it's not mentally stimulating because it's her own yard. It's the same all the time. Yeah.
And I had a husky client that was literally chewing the house.
Oh.
Like the dog was so crazy that it was living in the yard.
Yeah.
And it was the yard was not enough stimulation for them. They were literally chewing the actual house.
Oh my gosh.
The side of the house. Yeah.
Yeah. We create
so
these problems.
You really can't just be like, I have a yard. It's fine. You have to exercise your dog.
Yeah. Otherwise you're creating a problem. A lot of the behaviors that we see are because the dogs are bored. I'd say 80% of the digging and chewing is because of that, They're just...
And some of the barking.
Oh, yeah. Some of the barking.
Scarlett's a lot less barky after she's had some stimulation.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. And that's also like mental needs. So that's the other thing. They don't always need 2-hour hikes, right?
Not
But they
at all.
do need stimulation,
Yeah.
right? So we have mental stimulation. You can teach them tricks. That's a big favorite of mine. They can do puzzle feeders. You can do scent games. There's a lot of things you can do with them that's not physical exercise.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
some dogs are just not right for first time dog people.
I love that you said that.
It's
That feels very judgy, but I think it's really
I
true.
know. Well, that's me.
I think it's really true.
But we say it, and then, like a corgi puppy is adorable. Their ears aren't even up yet. They're so stinking cute. And you go see them and you think, how can I not? Well, because they're big dogs with short legs, and they don't act like that. They don't act like a little dog, and you sort of are surprised. And they will run the house if you don't, know what you're doing at least a little bit. If you've never had a dog, I start where it's difficult. My giant schnauzer is not for a lot of people.
No schnauzers are for
that's on my
new
list.
dog owners.
Yeah. There's a puppy in my class now. She's come right through puppy class and novice and intermediate, and we're going to go through intermediate again because she just talks all the time.
Yeah,
she has a lot to say. She's
so
excited.
When we were saying there are barky breeds, schnauzers are one of them.
They just started, and Shiba Inus, not for the first person. Cattle dogs, Briard. Briards are beautiful dogs. Most people don't even know what they are. If you don't know what it is, maybe there's a reason. I like to tell people they don't know what mine is. My giant schnauzer has unclipped ears and a tail, which is unusual for the breed. And I'd like to tell them, he's a doodle. I don't want everybody to go out and get a giant schnauzer. They're a protective breed. They're not always, you have to enforce, which just sounds tough.
Also, like Dalmatians. 101 Dalmatians was rough because everybody wanted to get Dalmatians, and Dalmatians are generally not good family dogs.
Yeah. I mean, anybody can be.
Like, and they're very rare right now. Again, finally.
Yeah. But. Irish setters. I've only had a couple go through class, but they're just so energetic and thinking about other things except what you're doing. Not for first time people, really. But I think a lot of people, they think the answer then is a doodle, right? Of some kind. Bernedoodles, Labradoodles, Golden Doodles. They're making up all sorts of doodles now. Because in theory, they don't shed. In theory, they're hypoallergenic. Of course, those things are probably not the case with your dog. It depends on the breeding. If there's a lot of golden in there instead of a lot of poodle, you could very well have, that kind of hair instead. And it's not just about the hair. It's about the dirt that dogs bring in. My giant schnauzer does not shed, really. Only when I brush him do I get any dead hair. But the dirt that sticks to his, what I call leg warmers, he's got big puffy feet. The dirt is amazing.
Yeah, Val is filthy every time he comes in from the park.
Oh, don't get a white dog.
Filthy. Right. Yeah, somehow I ended up with 2 white poodles. So filthy. But he'd be just as filthy if he wasn't white. I just wouldn't be able to see it.
Right?
He'd be dragging it in.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about the poodles too, because this brings me to the topic of how much money you have to spend on your dog.
Yeah.
Because if you get a doodle, they're not cheap to maintain that fur.
No.
You can brush it, but you're probably going to need to pay someone to cut it. I mean, you can definitely learn to cut their hair, but let's be honest, you're probably talking about professional grooming. Whereas if you have a lab, you could probably do all of their grooming at home.
Yep.
Okay. With the short hair. So you need to consider that. Let's talk about the brachycephalic, the smush face dogs and the medical bills that they rack up.
Yeah. I mean, some are fine and they live happily ever after and never have an
fingers crossed.
But, I've had numerous Frenchie clients who've had very expensive surgery.
So much.
And things that just happen that things happen already to, with any dog, let alone you're already starting out with, we need palate surgery,
Yeah. Or I've seen so many of the Dachshunds, or wiener dogs, if you don't know what a Dachshund is, because they have those long, you try corgis as well with the long backs and the short legs, but Dachshunds in particular, they have a lot of back problems,
Yeah.
And it's not so you have to not only adjust your house so they're not jumping up and down off your stuff and risking their spines, but it's very possible they can get a squished disc. I think that's called IVD.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
other things that are very, very serious. So that's another thing to know about a breed that you're buying, is some of them do tend to have a lot of medical bills.
If you go to akc.org and you look at a breed, it'll have all these sorts of, risks that they might have medically. And you go, oh, is that a big one? Is that a little one? Oh, but he's so cute. And then you do it anyway. And I had Westies. They're known for really bad allergies. And I had them in New York, and then I brought them to Southern California where, everything's blooming all year.
I never had allergies before I moved here. Never.
But my first Westie had really bad allergies, and that meant living on prednisone for the rest of his life. And that's not what you want to do. It, can, make other health issues down the line. But he had no hair on the fronts of his paws. He just lost all the hair. And everybody thought, I walked by said, oh, mange. No, he doesn't have mange. He has allergies. He doesn't know. People always know everything. And that it didn't cost a fortune to take care of, but that really, I hesitated after that about the breed, like you got to get the right one. Some people have a thing about, small dogs versus big dogs. I'm a big dog person. Maybe that was good 15 years ago, but now you're 15 years older and maybe you should think smaller. Yeah.
Also cost. It just costs more to feed a large dog. I'm sure you're feeding your giant schnauzer more than I'm feeding Scarlet with 7 pounds.
Yeah. And everything, meds, everything, even grooming costs more for a bigger dog.
The beds cost more. The crates cost more. I mean, everything costs more for a bigger dog.
Oh yeah.
Of course they do. And you're picking up bigger poops. Come on.
You need a garbage bag instead of a poop.
Come on. Yeah. There's a pit bull that I absolutely adore who comes and stays with me. But his poops are the worst. Every time he comes, I'm like, oh, right, it's the poops. They're enormous.
Yeah.
So huge. But that's the thing is, I always grew up with big dogs. I never had small dogs until now. I love all size dogs, but you should think about it.
Yeah.
And if you're walking them, right?
Yep.
You really, I'm not saying you don't have to train small dogs. People say that they don't have to train them because they just, they can let them pull. They're not going to drag them down like the big dogs are, but you really are going to have to teach that big dog to walk on a leash. You're not going to have a choice.
Yep. And there's a secret. Little dogs are the same as big dogs in a small package. So anything you can teach a big dog, you can teach a little dog. My Papillon used to sit in a group class with all these Dobermans and Rottweilers and really big dogs because they had to be trained. But I was still having really great times with her because she was like a border collie in a tiny package. She needed stimulation. So she'd be the only, 8-pound dog and everybody else would be 40 and 50 and 80 pounds. It was kind of crazy, but the little dogs can do it too. It's good.
Yeah. But you're going to hurt your back bending over to treat them. That's the downfall of the little dog.
Not for long. They can learn to jump up, get the treat, and then go back down again. It's not bad.
Or you can try to have good aim when you're like tossing the treat. But
why not change it up? Like you always had golden retrievers and your last one wasn't like this, but how about trying something else for a change? There are so many different kinds, you get like in a rut, change it up, get a different breed.
Totally. Yeah. And there's also like mutts tend to have better health in general than purebreds.
That's what they say.
And I'm not anti-purebred at all.
Yeah. Because some of them are breeders, so beautiful. How can you not?
Well, and good breeders will do like what health tests are reasonable and things like that. And that's why those puppies are so expensive.
Yeah.
From a really good breeder. But just in general, a nice mutt, it's got a little bit of everything. It doesn't have as much inbreeding because if you think about how a purebred is done, they have to stay within the same genetic pool over and over again. And the more generations you do that, the more kind of issues can come up with that.
Can I give a shout out to cats? So, like maybe you should get a cat now instead of a dog. Or if you already have a dog, a little dog, Chihuahuas tend to do great with cats right out of the gate just because they're the same size. There's no threat. Like maybe you're really not home enough. Maybe you need to get 2 kittens and, take those out of the world. They're put down in the shelters more than dogs are.
So much.
So few of them get out of the shelter.
I will say cats they don't need no attention, but they certainly need less attention. I have 2 cats that are super social, super lovey, like want to be around people a lot, which some people are always shocked when they come over and are like, oh my God, your cat's really friendly. It's like, they have different personalities too. But yeah, we used to, before we had dogs, you could leave for the weekend, leave out food, scoop the box. Not something you can do with the dogs. But they don't need no attention. No. They need some environmental setup. They need, whatever. So, but definitely a lower impact.
Yeah. Well, your cats have it really great. They've always had so much enrichment and stimulation, more than my cats ever will have. I mean, boxes on the walls for them to climb into. It's just extraordinary. And some people will say, well, I'm not a cat person. Well, those people usually haven't had a cat. So my cats are very dog-like, in many ways.
And my cats have trick titles.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, you can, if you want to do things with your cats, and I'm working on trying to harness train Lily so she can walk outside. So there's a lot of things you can do with cats if you want a dog experience, depending on the cat. Again,
absolutely.
My other cat, no interest in going outside, not interested in that at all. But super food motivated, will do any trick for a treat. Will shove his sister out of the way to show her how it's done so he can have the treat. So, they have their own personalities too, but there's a lot. I love cats. They're great.
Adorable. Adorable.
Yeah.
And let's just do one more shout out for fostering. Just try it.
Yes.
The dogs that are in rescues and shelters usually have one or all three of these issues: separation anxiety, house training, or reactivity. And those are things that we can absolutely work on. If the dog barks at other dogs, maybe he just hasn't seen that many dogs, or he's only had bad experiences. He hasn't had enough socialization. So let's work on it. And separation anxiety, sure. If I were a new rescue, I would have it too. So, a foster situation can, at least get their house training in motion and get things started. And maybe you'll fall in love, and then maybe you don't. Maybe that means one dog less is in the shelter, and now someone else will adopt him.
And honestly, it's such a win-win situation. And talk about a good way to get your feet wet if you're a first-time dog owner that's never had a dog. Like, you can experience it. Guess what? You don't have to pay for the dog's food or medical care or anything. They're gonna set you up with everything. You get a chance to see what it's like to live with a dog. And then again, if you're like, whoa, this is a sweet dog, but not for me. Guess what? They're gonna go to another home. They're gonna move on. You can try another one. And if you're like, oh my God, this is the one, you can probably adopt it at that point.
I have friends who travel a lot. That's what they do. They have a foster dog, and then, then the dog gets a home, and then they take a trip. And isn't it a good way to try out your boyfriend or girlfriend and see how they do with before you have a baby? Let's see if you can handle fostering a dog.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So fostering's amazing. And it truly, truly does save lives. If people listened to the episode this season about the shelter crisis, like literally if you go in and foster, you could save a dog from getting put down in a shelter that day because there's no place for them. So,
and you and I are here to help, right? Like if somebody doesn't
any
know...
good rescue should have a trainer on call, and get a good one, because some of the rescues don't work with good trainers.
And if you want help picking out the right dog for you and your family, then you and I can help with that too. If they mention your podcast, I will do it for free. I just want them to get the right dog.
Look at that. That's a heck of a deal. I don't know anybody doing it for free. So you're going to get a rush of people.
I love to go to the shelter. I love to look at rescues. Some of my clients have been really like, they want a second dog, and I say, well, what about this one? And the first one I say they take.
Yeah. I think honestly, the best case is when people reach out before they get their puppy so that they can be totally set up before it comes, especially important if you have a puppy so you can hit the ground running. But even if you don't want a puppy or you're not sure what you want, absolutely reach out to a trainer. Reach out to Robin, apparently. Do it. But reach out to a trainer. We can help with that, because we'll think of things that you probably didn't think of that we've seen, and we can look into your lifestyle and kind of be like, let's talk about
And then
this.
Can I come over your house and look at and just get down on the floor like a dog will and show you the things they're going to get into? There's a sock under your couch. You just don't know it. Let me show you. There's a couch.
They'll
that
find
electric cord is just asking to be chewed on. Let me come over and I'll show you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate us having this chat. I think it's great. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Do reach out and get some help, and we'll help you out.
Thank you for stopping by the dojo this week. This is your aspiring sensei, Susan Light, signing off. You can find me at doggydojopodcast.com, or I'm Susan Light LA on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. The music was written by MacLight. You can find him at maclightsongwriter.com. If you like the show, you can support it by subscribing, sharing it with your friends, rating it, and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts. Just a reminder, this podcast is intended for educational purposes only and does not constitute advice or professional services by either the host or any of the guests. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another new episode of the Doggy Dojo.